All right. And good morning, everyone. Make sure you can hear me out there. Okay. Default. Good. All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session of Truly Foundation with your host, Oliver Blue. And I am so delighted to be here with you this day in this moment in time, having the opportunity to provide this space where we come together, right, around uh, the one cause, and we come together around this one common cause, and that is the common cause of peace. And if you have experienced any of our sessions, you know here that uh, ultimately we say that the goal of life is peace, right? And peace can be explained and described in so many different ways. But ultimately, all of us are on this journey to find peace, right? Uh, Even the sacred scriptures says um, that it is the peace that passes all understanding that guards our hearts and our mind. And so, who's not looking for peace? We all are looking for peace. That we can agree on. And so, I'm just delighted to be here today as your host, as your guide, as your temporary teacher, as your brother, as your equal. And uh, I'm just delighted to be here. And so, what is Truly Foundation? If you've not shared with us in previous uh, sessions, Truly Foundation is a nonprofit entity, and we are here dedicated to helping you discover what real freedom is and what real peace is, because we all desire that, right? What is real freedom and what is real peace? And so this entire platform has been developed for us to take the journey together to discover real peace and real freedom, and to have the direct experience of it, because to know it in our mind is one thing, but to experience or to have the direct experience of it is a totally different thing. And so, what good is peace or freedom if you cannot experience it? If you can just, it's like just going to the movies. You go to the movies, and or we go to different events. We go to sporting events, we go to movies, we go to plays, we go to shows, we go to all kinds of entertaining events, right, to be entertained. And that's one experience. But for you or I or anyone to have the personal experience that the entertainers are having, or to have the direct experience of what they are conveying, is a totally different result. It's a totally different outcome, right? So, like, just knowing about peace or knowing about freedom, that's maybe the beginning of it, right? It gives us hope, it gives us light, it encourages us. But to have the direct experience of it, oh my God. To have the direct experience of it is the accomplishment that we all desire. And so, when we talk about freedom, we're talking about the freedom, right? The freedom from what we call the master cause that keeps us, or the master block that keeps us from freedom. And that is our belief in separation. And when I say our belief in separation, the concept of separation itself is not what we need to be free from. We need to be free from the belief in it, right? To the point that we make it our own. Because in the concept of separation, meaning separating, and when I say separation here, I'm talking about, I believe that we are these individual separate selves, right? That are separate from our creator, and that we are these separate beings from one another, that in this, on this planet, that's over 8 billion people, 8 billion different bodies, 8 billion different identifications, and they're all unique. And in our concept, or in our conditioning, or in our understanding, there's a belief in separation, that we're not one, but that we're separate. We're all these individual cells. And that has grown out of the fact that we believe that we're even separate from our creator, that our creator is something other than what we are, something totally separate, something that is totally different. And out of that belief induces what we call fear, right? Because if we are indeed separate, or these autonomous beings, meaning that we created ourselves, we've made ourselves, we're an island to ourselves, we sustain ourselves, right? Then that is a very, very isolated place that engenders fear, right? And fear is imprisoning. Fear, like the written scripture says, fear is torment. It's tormenting. Why? Because it occupies a large space in our minds, in our consciousness, in our awareness, to the point it does not leave place of space for peace, right? Because when we believe in separation, which leads to fear, it also leads to the fact that we, in order to get to a place of separation, a place of independence, right, then we have had to usurp some authority. So there's an authority problem. Or when I say authority, we are our own author, that we made ourselves, we created ourselves. And so it creates an authority problem, because we know intrinsically that we didn't make ourselves. However, we have been nurtured and we have been conditioned in this society in which we live in, right? That is the individual, the divided self, right? The individed self. And that engenders fear, right? And so it is the master cause, and it's the master block to keep us from experiencing real freedom and real peace. And we're going to expand on that as we go through these lessons and sessions, right? And so, and then, when we get into a place of fear, when we are really not certain about who we are, because fear leads to uncertainty. And when we're not certain about our true identity, when we're not certain about our origin, we're not certain about our author or our creator or our God or our source, whatever resonates with you, right? In terms of how you want to define that. In other words, when we reject the idea that we are the creations of something that is beyond the physical, something that is beyond the limited, something that is beyond form, then we subject ourselves to the concept a birth and death. We're born to die. There's a birth, there's a death, there's a beginning, and there is an end to us. And that idea, in and of itself, leads to, I would say, it leads to Great Depression. To think that there's a beginning and there's an end and then there's it. that is an idea that leads to Great Depression in one's life, right? Because who wants to think in terms of beginning and end when at the core of our nature is this eternal impulse, right? Like we know internally that there is something greater about ourselves than meets the eye. There's something greater about ourselves than these physical bodies. There's something eternal and divine about us. We know it. There's a memory of it that is within our mind, that is in our consciousness. And there just seemed to be a separation or a disconnect. And when we're separate and disconnected from the truth of who we are, when we have this sense of separation, when we have this and when we have this sin consciousness, it leads to a consciousness of sin, meaning a consciousness of where there is this idea of separation, this consciousness of where we feel like we are incomplete, that we're not whole, that we are these vulnerable creatures that are subject to only lack and pain and sorrow and scarcity and limitation. And so ultimately, the belief in separation leads to fear, and fear leads to judgment, which it leads to rejection. We get a sense of being rejected. It leads to a sense of lack and scarcity, where we feel like there is not enough, there's not going to be enough, right? It leads to a sense of division, whereas we see everything as divided and not one, which ultimately leads to projection, where all of these feelings, these myopic feelings of being separate, creates a self-image of unworthiness and condemnation. It all leads in judgment. It all leads to this reaction that we call projection. That's where we try to get rid of these bad feelings. We try to separate ourselves from the emotion or the energy, right? Or the thoughts that seems to imprison us, that seem to depress us. And the way we try to separate ourselves from that is through projection, where we project these bad or small or what we call these feelings, these emotions, these thoughts of separation, right? The way we try to get rid of them is to project them on others or project them on situations. We project them out, right, by seeing these things in others. And what we don't realize is we are but projecting what we see in ourselves, which is 100% false if we're not seeing and perceiving the truth of who we are. And when I talk about the truth of who we are, I'm talking about the reality that we did not make ourselves, the reality that we don't even breathe ourselves, we don't sustain ourselves. We're in this universe that calls planet Earth. It's not even sustained by itself, but it is sustained by a power and a knowing and an intelligence that transcend all that is that we know naturally. That there is an ultimate source and resource, that there's an ultimate power, that there is an ultimate purpose and an ultimate reality. Here at All Things Truly, here at Truly Foundation, we call it love. We call it the real you that loves you. And so when we misperceive our true self, our true identity, the reality that we did not make ourselves, and the reality that that which we were created from and by is eternal, and it is complete and whole, right? It is divine, and it only can create after its own kind. Therefore, whatever this divine, whatever this infinite being is, and whoever it is, we are a complete whole extension of that, a complete whole reflection of that in our true self, in our true nature, at the essence of who we are, which transcend what we can see, what we can hear, what we can taste, what we can smell. It transcends this body identification, which has a beginning and an end. It transcends this self that we have made through our fear and belief in separation. And so in reality, the only thing that really needs to be corrected, the only thing that really needs to be healed in our life, the only thing that needs to be undone is our belief in a false self, or in a false idea about ourselves and about each other and about our author or our beginning or our creator. That is what needs to be corrected. Once that is corrected in our minds and in our hearts, and that we are in complete alignment with the reality of our divinity, the reality of our oneness with our creator and each other, that there's only the one. When we forgive ourselves, or when we let go of the idea that we are these limited selves, these divided selves, that are subject to time and space only, it is only then that we begin to walk the road of freedom. It is only then that we get to a place of peace. It is only then that we get to a place of tranquility, which we all desire. And all of these things are already present. All of these things that we desire, they're already present. They're everywhere present. And then you might be asking, well, where are they, Oliver? Life is hard. Life is difficult. You don't understand. I have this family. I have these bills, right? I have this career that I don't like. I'm having these health challenges. Do you know what I'm going through? This world is real. These challenges are real. These children are real. This husband, this wife, these family members, all of the, I live in a community where it's divided. I live in a state where, we're all labeled by our political affiliation. I live in a country where we call it the United States. But there is very little unity that we can put our hands on, at least that is communicated to us. You don't understand. You're not living in the real world, Oliver. And I can understand where one could have that response to what I'm saying up until now. However, stick with me, right? Stick with me, because the faith for your freedom, the faith For your peace and tranquility comes by hearing, and hearing by the truth, hearing by every thought of God, by every thought of love, right? That's my experience. There was a time I thought this way. There was a time that I believed in separation. There was a time that I believed that, that all there was to life was my body experience, my limitations, this world and this, the history of humanity. I thought that that was the real deal and that was all there is. And it was very fearful. And I didn't really know who I was. And I walked in fear. I walked in limitation. I walked in doubt. I had no certainty. I was afraid of death. I was afraid of life. But at the age of 28, something happened to me. And we're going to talk about that today as we get into this subject of revelation, time, and miracles. But I'm just kind of laying the groundwork for, what these sessions are going to be about. And invite you to just stay with us for a minute. Because these sessions can be transformative. They can be a turning point in your life. And I'm certain of that. By my own experience, I'm certain of that. By, what I have discovered through what is written, right? And what is known, and what has been demonstrated, and what has been proven, and what has been accepted, and what is perfect. And so, how are we going to, by what means, right? So the question is, by what means here at Truly Foundation do we use to accomplish peace, freedom, tranquility? By what means are we going to accomplish this, right? And so our means of accomplishing the direct experience of freedom, peace, tranquility, which I bundle those three up and call them the abundant life. You remember? I call them the abundant life. The master teacher said it best this way in one of the four gospels, where it was said that Jesus of Nazareth, right, who I deem as the greatest teacher of all, Jesus is my example in everything, because he taught universal principles and he proved that they were true. He proved that they transcended, right, the laws of this world. He proved reality over unreality, right? And so he said it best this way when he said, I have come. In other words, my purpose for coming as a man is so that you may have life and may have it more abundantly, right? So he called it the abundant life. And I just break it down into what is the abundant life. Abundant life is what? Abundant life is freedom, right? Freedom from the belief of separation, freedom from fear. The abundant life is that tranquility that we talked about, right? And the abundant life is what? Peace. And that's a lot in that when I say peace. What peace looks like. Peace looks like what? It looks like prospering and being in health and understanding how gifted one is and how one can use their gifts, right, for a divine purpose. So Pete, so that abundant life is all encompassing. In other words, I come that you may have this life. It's talking about the quality of life or the kind of life, and that you may have it what more abundantly. So it is us understanding the good that is at every dimension of life, from the seen to the unseen, the visible to the invisible, and how we can have a direct experience of that. And so our means of accomplishing this on this platform is through sharing what I call advanced spirituality or advanced principles or metaphysical principles that I have discovered, right, through my own experience, through revelation, and then through inspired writings like A Course in Miracles, the Holy Bible, and other inspired writings that are out and that has evolved over time that share these same universal principles or universal laws that once we understand and get understanding, right? In Proverbs it says, in all you're getting, get understanding. That understanding is the principal thing. Wisdom is the principal thing, because it leads into an awareness of this abundant life. It leads unto peace. It leads into freedom, real freedom. It leads into your tranquility. Jesus also went on to say that who the Son sets free is free indeed, right? Because just because we have free will doesn't mean that we are free unless it leads to freedom. Having a free will doesn't mean freedom if it doesn't lead to us being free. So the question this morning is, are you experiencing total freedom? Because freedom must be total. Just like love must be total. Right? Are you experiencing freedom? Are you free? And so the freedom that Jesus talked about is this having this complete awareness and accepting your true reality as this whole and complete and infinite and divine and innocent being that is one with your Creator in all creation. So it talks about this completeness, and it talks about this oneness, right? That word completion, as the Course in Miracles share it, it's the word holy, or to be whole and complete. That there's nothing missing, there's nothing broken in your life, but you are complete. That you are complete in your true creation. And we're not talking about your body self. We're not talking about the body. But we're talking about the essence of who you are, as Jeremiah defined you, as being known by God, by reality, before you were informed or before you was formed in your mother's womb. That is the self that we're talking about, your true self, your eternal self, your before earth self that still exists. And so we are going to share in these sessions from these wisdom writings, from my own personal experience, in hope that all those that are open and ready to move away, right, from the elementary things of this life, the elementary understanding that only keep us stuck in living small and playing small, that only keep us stuck in limitation, that only keep us stuck in limiting beliefs. If one is ready to transcend or to make a shift from that, you are in the right place. You know, in the New Testament of the Bible, in Hebrews 6:1, you got a Bible, you can turn there with me. In Hebrews 6:1, I just want to read something here. Because when I say we're going to use advanced spirituality, we're going to teach advanced spiritual teachings. And I'm not saying that this is something special. No, this is natural. These are the natural laws. This is the natural reality. This is the truth that is true always. This is the unchangeable dynamics of life, right? Paul talks about it here in Hebrews 6, right? He says, Hebrews 6:1, it says, therefore, leaving the principles. Notice now, Paul is urging us to leave the principles, to leave the fundamentals. He said, therefore, leaving the principles or the fundamentals of the doctrine of Christ, right? Leaving the principles of the doctrine of Christ, let us go on unto perfection. Let's go on and experience our perfection. Because, believe it or not, in our true self, the true essence of who we are is perfection, right? Because we are just like our Creator. We're just like our Father. We're just like our Author. We remain that way in our true self, in our divine self. And so it says, leaving the principles of the doctrine of Christ, let us go on into perfection. I know we, in our humanity, we have a problem with that word perfection. Because we relate our experience, our limiting experience, to our true identity. Let me say it this way. Who we are in reality, we're not human. We're not that thing that's born and the thing that dies. We're not these bodies. That's not our true identity. But we are having a human experience. In other words, we are passing through this dimension, right, where it requires a body to be here, where it requires birth and death to be here. It requires birth to be here and death to leave here, of the body, of this realm, of this dimension. But this dimension is, in and of itself, is only temporary. And so we get confused and we identify who we are with this human experience. But we know that there's a greater awareness or a greater part of us that transcends this horizontal experience we call life. This horizontal experience we call the human experience. We're more than that. We're much more than that. And that part of us is eternal. That part of us is infinite. That part of us has no beginning and it has no end, and it is changeless and it is unalterable. It cannot be changed. So who we are in our reality, the real you, is changeless, it's formless, it's timeless. And you don't come to know that naturally, but you come to know that by revelation. And revelation is no more than the original form of communication, divine to divine. In other words, it is the original way that we understood. It was the original way that we communed and communicated with the source of life. It was through revelation, not spoken words, not actions or activity, not form. It was through what we call the perfection of spirit. We use the word heaven sometimes to relate to that idea, right? And so our true reality is not what meets the eye, right? But it is our oneness with the source of life, in which we move and we have our, we have our beingness in this one power, this one love, this one reality, this one source that's timeless and formless. And so here Paul says, so we need to lead. For us, it says, for us to just put all our understanding into our human identity. He says that we need to leave that idea, right? We need to go on to our perfection. We need to rise up above the natural thinking that we are these individual separated selves, right? But we need to embrace the reality of our oneness with all of life. That we are a co-creator of life, that we are one with the source of life. The real you. We love to call it here love. The real you that loves you, right? Because the real you is love. The real you is divine. The real you is infinite. The real you is whole and complete. The real you is innocent. The real you is a part of all reality. And you have always been, and you will always be. There is no beginning nor end to you, because there's no end or beginning to the source of life. And so here, Paul is admonishing us. We need to leave these principles, leave the principles of the doctrine of Christ, and let us go on into perfection, not laying again the foundation of repentance from dead works and of faith towards God. He's saying these are elementary things. This is elementary. These are fundamentals. He said, but we need to go on beyond that, because there's so much more. So much more. In life, at least in my journey, you're born, and then you're born in a family, and you're born to parents, and your parents, they guide you to adopt their spirituality or their journey, what they believe. They invite you, or they require you, or they condition you to follow their faith towards God, right? Their practice, their religion. And that's just a natural evolution as one goes from being totally dependent on parents to the point that they get to make their own decisions, right? And so most of us have been, are a product of our parents' belief, or a product of our those that led and guided us in our early years. We pretty much was a product of their belief. We just adopted what they believed, or we conditioned to go their path, right? Because there's not just one path. There's many paths. You've been in this world long enough. There's many religions. There's many spiritual practices. There are so many different ways that people attempt to express their divine self and their faith towards God, or towards a higher power, or towards the universe, or towards Jesus or Buddha, or whatever practice or religion one got their start in. It doesn't matter. But where you start is not as important. As exercising your freedom to choose and to respond to what is happening from the inner self, from the intuitive self, from the divine self, from your invisible self, and what is being called to you, what is calling on you to have this experience, this universal experience of knowing the self and knowing your creator. That is placed in all of us. How that may look like and what that looked like in your journey in your life, it's just a unique path that you was on. But all of it leads to you having a universal experience. It all leads to you having a knowing and a certainty about who you are and your relationship to your creator and your relationship to one another. All of the other stuff that happens in life, it is just stuff that happens in life, but all of that stuff is being divinely orchestrated to wake you and all of us up to the reality of who we are, to the reality, to the remembrance of God, to the remembrance of love, to the remembrance of reality. It is all used to bring us to front and center with our identity, to see the truth of who we are and the oneness that we share with God and with each other. Doesn't matter what you name it, how you label it. Doesn't matter the history. Hang on, something happened. Let me hit try later. There I am. All right, I'm back. You may not have seen that on your end. But it doesn't matter what you label it. It all comes down, right, to you knowing yourself, to know thyself. And one cannot know themselves without knowing the creator. Why? Because in reality, the creator and who we are the same. We're one and the same. We're not separate. See, that belief in separation that we talked about earlier is the root cause. And so this whole journey of time and space and life is about us rediscovering or remembering who we are. It's about recognizing or coming into a recognition of who we are. It's like remembering ourselves, remembering that self that was before your mother's womb. That's what it's all about. That's what time has been given to us for, so that we can remember who we are. Because therein lies your ultimate freedom. Therein lies your ultimate peace. Therein lies your ultimate tranquility. Therein lies your certainty. Therein lies your joy. Therein, and all of that, we put all of that under the title of the abundant life. And it's the only life. It is the God kind of life. It is the quality of life that has been given to all of us before something happened. And so he says, I want to finish this. Therefore, leave the principles of the doctrine of Christ. Let us go on unto the perfection, not laying again the foundation of repentance from dead works and the faith toward God, of the doctrine of baptism, of the laying on of hands, and of the resurrection of the dead, and of eternal judgment. He's saying he said we need to leave these things. He said that was just the beginning. But in my 65 years of learning, I have observed that, I don't like to say this, but a lot of what I observe is that people stay exactly in that same place and not growing and not expanding and holding on to, things that are not perfect, things that are not pure, things that are not true, things that are not whole. things that are not praiseworthy, things that are not of a good report. In other words, we stay entangled with the religiosity of the elementary things, and we never grow up. We never become these full grown adults where spirituality is concerned, where we never become these, powerful expressions, right? We never become these we never express ourselves as these gods, right? The commandment was given in the creation story that we are to have dominion, and that we ought to be fruitful, and that we ought to multiply, and that we to have dominion over everything on the earth, that we to have dominion over all of the earth. And we're still grappling with self-control. We're supposed to have dominion over everything. But what I have observed is a lot of us, and especially in the religious community, we're still struggling with self-identity. We're still struggling with, habits, and we're still struggling with guilt and judgment. These are the elementary things. These are the things that you say we need to move away from. We're still fighting over, baptism and which path is the right path, which denomination is the right denomination, which religion is right, and we're children's things, children's bread. And here we're being admonished by the Spirit. We've been admonished to move on, right, to perfection. In other words, to experience our own perfection. Instead of looking at God as something outside of us and not realizing that it's impossible for you to be separate from God. It's impossible for you to be separate from life. You are impregnable. It's impossible for you to be separate from perfection and completeness and wholeness. A lot of us still shrink from the idea that we are sinless. A lot of us shrink from the idea that we are whole. The word holy. A lot of us still shrink from the idea, right, that we are one with all humanity. And we know we shrink from that idea how we are continuing to promote division and separation, and how we're allowing things like politics and religion and gender and who we love and how we love to divide and separate us in the name of God. And does that look like perfection? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Does that look like completeness, oneness, wholeness? No. It looks like a mess. And so he says, we need to move away from these elementary things. Talking about baptism. Should one be baptized or not baptized? Faith towards God, repentance. It goes on, it said laying on of hands. These are the things that we see, in the church community. Laying on of hands, the resurrection of the dead. Will the body resurrect? Will it not resurrect? Eternal judgment. We still arguing over, who's going to go to heaven, who's not going to go to heaven, which is ridiculous and ludicrous. It's elementary stuff. It's children's bread. It says, this we will do if God permits. But it goes on to say that it is impossible for us to be separated from God. It is impossible for us to be enlightened. It's impossible for us to be awakened to the reality of our true identity and still be grappling around in those little elementary things that divide us and separate us and keep you away from peace, and it keeps you away from the freedom that you are in truth, that keeps you away from the tranquility that is yours And all of this is in the remembrance of who we are. It's all in the remembrance of God. And that remembrance has been placed within us, and it is in us. It's not mine, right? It just needs to be awakened because it had fallen asleep, like Adam fell asleep in the garden. And nowhere does it say in the Bible that Adam ever woke up, right? But Adam did awaken. And Jesus Christ was the demonstration of that awakening, where he fully embraced who he was. That's why he said, I and the Father are one. When you see me, you seen the Father. And now it's our time. Now your life has been given to you to awake from the sleeping state of believing in separation, which leads to fear, which leads to sin consciousness and guilt and judgment, which all of these become blocks to us experiencing freedom, experiencing peace, and experiencing tranquility. To know ourselves is the ultimate. We've been given time to know ourselves. So this is a journey on remembering who you are. Life is a journey of remembering who you are. In different spaces and places, we call it different things. Jesus told Nicodemus, you must be born again. In other words, you must know who you are. Jesus asked his disciple, who do men say that I am? And Peter said, what? You are the Christ. This what? The creation of God. And what did Jesus' response was to Peter was, Peter, you are correct. Flesh and blood has not shared that with you. He said, but that came to you by revelation. It came to you by direct communications with God, by a direct communication with Source. It's revealed, right? It is disclosed. It is unveiled, right? So the unveiling of the truth is our purpose for being here, so that we can rediscover who we are. That word recognize, it just basically means to remember again, to recognize. So we're here to recognize our true self. We're here to recognize our brother, which is everyone, excluding no one. We're here to recognize our creator, our God, our source, our author. That's why there's so much disorder in the world, because it's a lack of this revealed knowledge. It's a lack of this awareness. You can be born in the church, born in a mosque, born in a synagogue. You can be born in all these religious spaces, but until you wake up to the truth of who you are as the Christ, as one with all humanity, as one with the creator of humanity, then we grope in the dark. Then we hang around in these principles, these elementary principles, and we don't experience our true self. And so in this space right here that we call truly foundation, right? That word truly means the real you loves you. And it is the foundation of your joy, your peace. It is the foundation of the abundant life. It is the foundation of your freedom. It is the foundation of your tranquility. But until that, we accept that reality for ourselves, and nothing keeping us from accepting it. But until we accept that reality for ourselves, then we experience fear, and fear has torment. We experience anxiety. We experience uncertainty, and all that goes with that. And so we're wasting our time in those elementary things. There's no need to wallow in those things anymore. There's no need to play with those children toys anymore. But like Paul admonished us, when we were children, we acted like children, we talked like children, we thought like children, we did children things. But when we become adults, when we become full grown, when we wake up, when we become enlightened, when we come to know ourselves, we put away those childish things. The childish thing is the way that we give our allegiance over to thinking, right? From a place of fear, from a place of separation. And so that's why renewing the mind is so important. It's so much a part of this process of awakening. We wake up, right? And we remember who we are. And then we be about the business of expressing that, of proving what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of love. So there has to be a renewing of the mind. There has to be work. There's work to be done. And we're here to help with that work. We're here to help ensure that you're getting the best information, the best revelation. We're here to make sure that you are expanding your awareness. We're here to help call you from, like he said, the principles of the doctrine of imperfection. We're calling you to your perfection. We're calling you to your profession. We're calling you to your expression of peace and freedom and tranquility. That's what Jesus did with his life. He understood that. And he spent his life not only expressing that, but he spent his life ministering to others to help them to understand, to bring them into an awareness of who they are. So his life became purposeful. And then he said, our time will be best spent as we accept this for ourselves and then go out into our world and share this reality through demonstration, through our expression. And this is just Truly Foundation is just an expression of that I created, right? But the real demonstration is my accepting it for myself, knowing who I am. You knowing, accepting it for yourself, accepting the truth for yourself, to know yourself, to have the experience of your divine self. And like Frankie Beverly said, and spread it all over the world. That we are one. That we are one, and to spread that oneness all over your world. Wherever you go, in all your interactions, that you begin to see your brother as yourself, because your brother is yourself. There's only the one of us. That you begin to see all the avatars that have gone before you, including Jesus the Christ, as yourself, as your equal. I know I'm getting real advanced now, right? Yes, but it is true. Even Paul said it. Let this mind be in you that was also in Jesus the Christ, who was in the form of a man. As God, he thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Why? Because he knew he was. Do you know that you have equality? Do you know that you have the same life that God is? Do you know that you are the extension, the express image, the express extension of the one life that exists? That's your equality. That's your oneness. That is who you are. That is what you are. And it is changeless. It is unalterable. Even if we stay asleep in this journey called life and pretend to be something else, even if we remain in darkness and see ourselves as something separate and apart from our Creator and from one another, it doesn't change reality. You cannot change yourself. You cannot undo what God has done. You cannot undo the creation that you are. We can just dream of something else, right? And most of humanity is dreaming of something else. the treatment of lack and scarcity and fear and disease and lack and all of the things that the history of humanity has put on display to try to disprove our oneness, to try to disprove our um, every promise and every thought of the divine. But not so. Not so anymore. 40 years ago, I said, not so anymore. When the revelation came to me, not so anymore. When I continued to grow and expand and gain understanding and leave the elementary principles and go on to perfection. Not anymore. And this is what we should all be using time for, is to grow and expand in God, in the knowledge of God, in the knowledge of ourselves, in the knowledge of each other, so that we indeed will become this sweet smelling savor unto our Creator, this sweet smelling savor unto God. And so I'm going to stop right there. This is just an introduction into what this lesson is about, and that is about revelation, time, and miracles. Because if we're going to understand, ourselves, we're going to understand this dimension that we're in. If we're going to understand our purpose in life, if we're going to understand the hidden treasure of freedom, the hidden treasure of peace, the hidden treasure of tranquility, the hidden treasure of the abundant life, the life more abundant, we're going to have to really study and understand revelation, time, and miracles. Right? We're in school. This is part of real living. This is part of the real human experience. We are eternal students. You'll always be learning. You'll always be learning, because your nature is to grow. And when we refuse to grow and to stay in our comfort zone and to stay, in our elementary understanding, to just hold on to what we were indoctrinated with, to just hold on to what we were taught, and to be only limited by those who were gone before us, then you already know how that feels. We already know how that feels. It doesn't feel like we're living. It doesn't feel like we feel very weak. We feel very vulnerable in this world, right? We feel fearful, right? Because in that is separation. Because what we're holding on to is the belief in separation. What we're holding on to is belief that we have made ourselves, and we have to protect ourselves and keep ourselves and grow ourselves. We have to fend for ourselves. And we lose sight of reality. Right? There's reality and there's unreality. And here we are here to expand our awareness on what is real and what is changeless and what is timeless and what is formless, and who we are. So in our next session, we're going to get into revelation, time, and miracles. And I'll just preface by saying revelation is, I would say, like the original, it's like the original communication between God and his creation. Right? Because remember, God and his creation is formless. God didn't just show up 6,000 years ago when we look at the creation story in Genesis with Adam and Eve. God wasn't just born then. Neither were you. But God created humanity. God created you and me before time, before space, before the foundation of the world. We were already created, formless, timeless, just like God. We were thoughts in the mind of God. He was an idea, but the idea was a reality because the thoughts of God and God are not separate. And so God communicated with his creation through revelation, the original means of communicating creator and creation. It wasn't spoken words. It was just pure perfection, spirit to spirit, wholeness to wholeness, completion to completion, understanding to understanding. And so we need to understand revelation, right? Because it is how God directly communicates with his creation. And revelation is always on the move. It is always revealing itself. In other words, love is always talking. God is always sharing. But we have to be tuned in, right? We have to have an ear to hear. We have to have an open heart. We have to be willing to leave the elementary things. We have to be willing to leave what we know, give up what we know, to embrace what is already available. So it reflects the original form of communication between God and his creation. And we're going to talk about that. That is still going on, right? We need to reconnect. The whole goal is to reconnect to revelation because it unites us directly with our creator. It unites us directly with God. It unites us directly with the universal mind. All infinite intelligence is within this connection. And so we're going to talk about revelation and the importance of it and how it is so personal. We're going to really get into that. When we get revelations from God, it is personal. It is personal to you. That's why it is almost impossible to describe the revelation or the experience, right? Because revelation leads to experience. And it's hard to describe when you have an experience with God to anyone. It's hard to put in words. It's almost impossible to put in words. Why? Because it's extremely personal to you. You ever try to explain to someone what happened to you? You ever try to explain to someone how God revealed something to you? And nobody can really get it like you got it because you cannot really express it because it's extremely personal. Because remember, there's really only one of us, but we're appearing here in this dimension as billions of us, right? But the same message is going to everyone. The same message is going to everyone. And the message is to wake up. The message is to know yourself and to know your creator, to love yourself and to love your creator and to love your neighbor because your neighbor is yourself. And so we're going to get into revelation. We're going to get into miracles and what's the true miracle? What is it? What's the idea of a miracle beyond the elementary stuff, right? Laying on of hands. We're not talking about that kind of stuff. We're talking about a shift in the way that you think, a shift in the way that you perceive. We're talking about every good and perfect gift. We're talking about every act of love that we have among each other because miracles happen among equals. It happens among us. Miracles are from us and are for us. Revelation is from God. But our elementary idea is that God performed miracles. No, we perform miracles among ourselves when we love one another, when we forgive one another. Those are miracles. When one that has more give to one that has left. That's a miracle. That's miraculous. And miracles brings us closer to one another. Revelation makes us aware of the infinite dynamic that we are. And then miracles are where we share that dynamic among each other. And then we're going to get into time. Talk a little bit about time. But we understand that time is given to us to wake up. And that time really doesn't exist. But since we have detoured into time, the best use of it is for us to remember who we are. The best use of it is to undo the belief in separation. The best use of time is to learn our perfection. And we're going to get into that. So until the next time, join us right here on this platform, Truly Foundation. And you can also consume, let's see here, you can also consume some more of, let's see here, is that going good? You can also consume more of our content here at Truly Foundation. We have over 400 teachings, videos in video form that's on our YouTube channel called Truly Foundation. I just put in the chat or the comment field the link to go to our YouTube channel, and there's almost 2 years and 400 videos of teaching, advanced teaching, that can help you and me and anyone who has a desire to expand your understanding, to expand your awareness, to experience more of your freedom, to experience more of peace, and to experience more tranquility in your life. There's over 400 videos there where you can binge and get more of the vibe that you hear coming through this sharing. Again, we are a nonprofit organization. We're not doing this for profit. However, we are here, right, to support the communities, right? Those that are drawn to us, those that our message resonate with, that our purpose resonate with. But we do give you an opportunity to share in the work that we are doing. Again, we're a nonprofit organization. And so there's an opportunity to share in helping us to get this type of and level of message out. And won't get into it today, but we'll provide you means to support what we're doing. And because it is nonprofit, I mean, it's tax deductible. So, but that's a conversation for another time. But for today, and for today only, what's the takeaway? The takeaway is that we are the creations of a loving creator. And no matter what you name it, but that's not going to change or alter it. Love is, God is, Christ is, Buddha is, or whatever you name you associate with that which is ultimate and that which is supreme. We get caught up in the elementary. Oh, his name is this, his name is that, right? It merely is. Reality is. God is. Love is. And you are the creation of that love. And that only oneness exists. And we're part of that oneness. We're not separate, but we're one. We are these unified beings that were created before time and space, before the world was. And our goal is to reconnect with that, to recognize that reality, to recognize that identity, so that we can prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will while we are here in time and space. So we can become the evidence, the proof and the evidence of reality. What is the takeaway? That we are these whole and complete beings. That we are innocent. And we no longer have to live in fear. We no longer have to give any attention to guilt and sin consciousness. That we no longer have to live in scarcity and lack, in division. We no longer have to reject ourselves. We no longer have to reject our brother. We no longer have to reject our Creator. But we can live in harmony, that we can live in peace, that we can live in freedom, and that we can live in tranquility, because we all desire that. We can live in quietness. But we can also be like these helpful co-creators, right? We can be like our elder brother, Jesus of Nazareth. We can be what? Saviors of our world. But we first must know ourselves. That's the takeaway. To know yourself as one with God and one with all of life. That's what the big search is for. And so until the next session, hey, be at peace. Walk in your freedom. Enjoy the tranquility of all of that. Bye-bye.